My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Hey, community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch. I'm super excited for today's interview. Ryan, I reached out to him for a lot more than I'd like to admit to, but I had this idea that I wanted to connect with someone from an organization that if you're not familiar with, you should get familiar with. So Ryan was able to connect me with my guest today, April. She has an extensive background in the 911 industry with over 30 years of service on both the public sector and the private side of dispatch as well. She's currently the 911 and PSAP Operations Director at the National Emergency Number Association, known to most folks as NENA, and she has graciously agreed to join me today to talk about her experience and NENA as an organization to the everyday dispatcher. So I'm going to go ahead and bring April on with me. Hi, April.
Hey, how are you today, Ashley?
I am doing well. I went to shift for a little bit of overtime and came back here to jump on this interview with you. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be able to talk about what NENA is and how it supports you all in the 911 profession.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience in 911. How'd you get involved in this line of work?
Well, I started off many, many moons ago as a public safety telecommunicator, just like you. I worked my way up in the organization that I served for 26 years, from telecommunicator to director. Throughout that time, trust me when I say there is not a single job I did not perform in a PSAP. So as I was doing that, I got involved with NENA. I attended my very first conference. The first conference I ever attended with NENA was a long time ago, called the TDC, the Technical Development Conference. Mm-hmm. And it was the first year that they did the Operational Development Conference in conjunction with the technical development side. Mm-hmm. So, and basically what it did is NENA is a standards development organization. So it was the conference to go to get involved in standards development. And at that very first conference, I went to the conference and I chose the track of TERT. And it was before TERT had actually started. The standard came about before we started deploying TERT teams. So I sat down next to this very lovely lady from Colorado, Monica Millian, who eventually became the president of NENA. And we have been very good friends ever since that very first conference. But I kind of got the bug. I got bit by the bug when I was sitting there and working 3 days in a room with like-minded individuals, creating this new standard because of a hurricane that ripped through New Orleans. And they were just absolutely devastated by that hurricane. And you heard the stories, and then you literally rolled up your sleeves and you started working on this document. And fast forward about 8 to 10 months, and the standard became a reality. And then we were able to start deploying TERT teams. And it was one of those things that was like, wow, I actually had a hand in the industry. I had a voice. And boy, did I like having a voice. So I stayed involved, and I started joining working groups, and then eventually I became a working group chair, and then I became a committee co-chair within the Development Steering Council, and so on. So it's been a very awesome career that I have been able to be a part of. But it started by just simply sitting down with like-minded people and lending a voice.
That's awesome. And I think it's so interesting. I always talk to people who have been doing 911 for a long time. And they're always like, thanks for pointing that out, Ashley. But like genuinely, like being around 911 for this long, you've got to see it develop. I mean, realistically, it's only 50 years old of a service here. And you've played such an instrumental role in developing, these type of protocols. And I would imagine just building NENA up as an organization in general from putting all those years in.
Right. So for years I was a NENA member. I started off simply as a NENA member. And then I became a contributor, volunteered my time in our standards development side, which anybody can do. Anybody who has been involved in the industry has the opportunity. You are a subject matter expert in your field, and you have the opportunity to lend your voice. And it's really important that you do. It doesn't matter if you come from a one-seat PSAP in a very rural place within the United States, or you come from a 180 member PSAP that is in a very large metropolitan area. You have an expertise that needs to be heard. And our standards development in particular, we need to hear from all walks of PSAPs, every single PSAP in the United States, because it helps us to make well-rounded standards and best practices that in turn your PSAP follows. So it's like getting involved in your own PSAP. When you first are a brand new baby telecommunicator, you learn everything you can. Well, then eventually you're like, okay, now I'm ready to do a little bit more. So maybe I want to be a trainer. So then you become a CTO, and then eventually you're like, you know what? I like this training gig and being a TC, but maybe I want to be a supervisor. Well, each and every time you do that, you learn something new, right? Well, all of those bits and pieces end up becoming parts of the overall operational standards and best practices that we create. And they also lend voices to the technical standards that we create. When a PSAP needs to implement some technology, or they need to know, well, how fast should I answer a call in my PSAP? What are the best practices with the questions that I ask? Am I keeping up with the industry? Am I doing things like others are so I can lessen the liability within my PSAP? Go to these standards and best practices to utilize those and to make them into your policies and procedures that you follow in the PSAP. I bet you would be surprised at how many of our standards your PSAPs actually follow and have written into your standards, or into your policies in your policy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I do want to kind of circle back to when you said like dispatchers are subject matter experts. And I want to empower dispatchers to really take that to heart, because I do think at times we can feel like, we're a small part, even though we are the big part. But I think at some locations and comp centers, dispatchers can feel like they're not a subject matter expert and they're kind of just going with the flow. But like this job is so unique, and the ability to do the things we do, we really are, experts on this line of work, answering 911 calls, de-escalating, all these things that stem from it. And folks really should be owning that as a part of their identity in this line of work.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm just a dispatcher," or I just take the call. I'm just a call taker." I've even, and quite frankly, I think that stems from them also hearing that from the other side of the radio. Sometimes, "Oh, you're just a dispatcher." And quite frankly, that I get so frustrated when I hear that, because you make a difference in people's lives every single day. From a simple lockout, somebody calling and they're hysterical because they've locked their keys in their car. Well, sometimes we go, how stupid can you be? Why would you have locked your keys in your car? But what we don't know is all of the things that go on behind the scenes, right? It could be that they just got a call from the hospital because their mom's just been taken by ambulance, and they were so wrapped up in trying to get somewhere, do something, that they accidentally locked their keys in their car. Those moments when you say, "Okay, I've got an officer on the way to with a lockout tool, they'll be able to pop your lock and get you on the way," or you go, "Okay, we don't do that service, but here's a number of a locksmith or a wrecker service that you can call, and they can come out and pop that car for you so you can get on your way." Those little things, that's a small thing, but you don't know how big it could be to that person on the other end. Not to mention the fact, I mean, for heaven's sakes, you save people's lives. I mean, how many times have you delivered a baby, or you've provided CPR instructions, or that's just on the call taker side, right? Think about the dispatch side. How many times has a law enforcement officer, or firefighter, or EMS personnel gone home safely because of you? You don't think about those things, but it is huge. We absolutely need our public safety telecommunicators. You run the world.
And what I have come to find, the more I research, I'm always someone who likes to find more things. And with that, I stumbled upon like organizations like NENA, and looking into, kind of your guys' goals and mission and what you guys are providing for dispatchers. And for the folks who aren't familiar with NENA, what is kind of like a catch-all for your guys' organization, maybe a mission or goal that these folks can relate to if they want to dive in more?
Absolutely. So NENA is an association, and as an association, we're member driven. But we really serve more than just our members. We serve the greater 911 community as a whole, which is tens of thousands of public safety 911 professionals that really just do everything from being a telecommunicator all the way through to being a director. So every aspect of a PSAP, to include GIS personnel, any type of technology personnel that handle all of your equipment within your 911 centers. We also have members that are vendors on the vendor community. What we call them is our industry partners, because we partner with them to create the technologies that help you on the 911 side of the house. So what we do is we try to provide the best possible emergency response through standards development, training, thought leadership, outreach, and advocacy. Really, all of those different aspects. So as I mentioned, I've already kind of gone into the standards development side, because that's really where I'm my first passion is. But we provide a huge catalog of training courses for our public safety 911 professionals. In addition to the training that we do, we do an advocacy role within the governmental side. So at a federal level, we work with organizations like the Federal Communications Commission, who is responsible for setting all of the standards. Basically, they're not really standards, but the rules for the 911 for carriers. On the telephony side of the house. And that's a really big deal. You don't think about that when you're a telecommunicator that much, but just the information that comes in on your 911 screen is all subject to what the FCC requires our telephony providers to do. So we work with the FCC to ensure that the rules that they're deploying on the carrier side make sense, and they also provide what it is you're needing to be able to get the best location you need, and requiring other parts of data that come along with that call. We work with the federal side and Congress in regards to various different pieces of legislation that come about. Dispatcher reclassification right now, where and that's a really big deal. But where reclassification is concerned, it's more than just the legislation that gets introduced. But that's already been introduced in 2 different Congresses and hasn't gotten anywhere. That doesn't mean that we can't push it in other ways. So working with the 911 program office at the national level to make sure that they have a toolkit for PSAPs to ensure that they can make sure their job classifications, their job descriptions are up to speed, so that when the Office of Management and Budget does another study in regards to the telecommunicator position, then all of the information that they need is going to be there, because they really run out of data, and data is a really big thing. So there's a lot of different aspects that NENA does on your behalf. Then there's a lot of different aspects that you can get involved in within NENA that help you in your profession.
That's awesome. And one of the things that I'm really excited about with NENA, that I'm currently in the process of getting ready for, studying for, is the E&P certification. And the more I look at the study guide and just how extensive the knowledge that you gain from just studying for this test, it's things that you really don't think about on the base level, right? Of just my everyday job. And it really looks like it dives into a lot of the operations and just things we don't really think about at the line level. So can we talk a little bit about E&P and that certification that you guys offer and what that's all about?
Yeah, so the E&P is the Emergency Number Professional Certification. And it is a certification that is the gold line standard for 911 professionals across all of North America. And that doesn't just stop at the US borders, that includes Canada and Mexico. So that gold line certification, we have a lot of different organizations now. Most of the different PSAPs across the country are now requiring an E&P certification as baseline knowledge for management positions within PSAPs. And what it basically does is it says that you are a mastery of the comprehensive knowledge base that is required in an emergency number professional program. And what that basically means is, the technology, the operations, the HR, everything to do with the 911 industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just kind of started studying for it and getting into some study groups. There's a lot of study groups out there, folks, for people trying to obtain this certification. And a lot of people just trying to help each other learn. Because I mean, 911 really is, I mean, it's a beast, right? It got a lot of ins and out and things that we just don't even consider when we're doing this job as a dispatcher in the comm centers, as a call taker. Um, and I think more importantly, what I'm finding when I'm looking at this material is you start to figure out all the things you can potentially go into in this line of work when you're no longer wanting to answer 911 for whatever reason. There's so many different aspects this knowledge from the certificate provides you on ways you can go into private sectors and things like that and still contribute to the furtherment of 911 emergency services.
Absolutely. So, as I told you, I started off in the PSAP myself. And because of, number one, I am an EMP, but because of my EMP, because I was involved in the standards development side, the more I became involved, the more I learned. What happens as you get involved like that is it does open those doors. It opens your opportunities to, when you're ready to move out of the 911 center, that it allows you to get to know private sector folks and the folks on the private sector that say, hey, I need your knowledge to make sure that the products and services that I am delivering to the 911 centers are exactly what you need. And that is very, very important to the private sector, but you really need to put forth the effort to learn as much as you can and to allow yourself to take these certifications like the EMP. Another class that NENA offers that is also very, very beneficial in the PSAP is our CMCP, and that's our Center Manager Certification Program. That's a week-long course that helps you to develop yourself into that manager of a PSAP. How do you staff your PSAP? How do you be a PIO when you have the press contacting you and you need to give a press release, or you need to, what do you say? How do you do those things? The CMCP class allows you to do that. CMCP and EMP are both certifications that are a lot of managerial positions are now requiring.
So interesting, because I definitely think that what I like about it as well is that it is something that you can convince your department to pay for. And it's also something that if your department doesn't have the funding or backing or whatnot, that it is something that you can go get on your own. And you can, especially with the EMP, I'm finding it's kind of at your leisure. You can study, and the certification is offered multiple times throughout the year. I believe in person as well as virtual testing situations. So for folks who, have maybe some anxiety behind test taking situations, it kind of provides a couple different options for folks to be successful.
Yeah, one of the things in regards to our EMP testing process that is very important to know is that it's not one test. The test actually randomly draws a certain number of questions from a question bank in various different parts of the knowledge base. So you may have so many questions on HR, so many questions on the technology side, so many questions on operational aspects, so many questions on legislation that affects your industry. And so nobody will ever take the exact same test because the test gets randomly drawn. So it's just a huge knowledge, a bank of knowledge that those questions are drawn from.
That's awesome. And I know ENP, there's a recertification aspect of it. Is that just for that certification, or is it typically all the certifications have some type of window where you have to recertify in some way, shape, or form?
For the EMP, the EMP is the only one that has that specific recertification. And basically, what it is that as an emergency number professional, you have to show you have you're continually mastering your industry. So you're showing maybe you're writing an article, you're doing you're attending so many conferences or classes or things like that, volunteering in standards development organizations, getting involved in your local NENA chapters so that you can, you also get points for doing things like that. So once you're an EMP, volunteering is also a really good way for you to continue to stay up on the points that you need to have for your recertification.
Awesome. What does membership look like? What does it include when folks decide to jump on the NENA train?
Yeah. So we have different types of memberships. Specifically right now, we're talking about telecommunicator. Our telecommunicator membership is actually, luckily, the least expensive right now. So it's $60 a year to be a telecommunicator member. What it includes, though, is free access to our webinar Wednesdays. We offer a webinar Wednesday every month that can be used towards your EMP recertification. But it's on various different topics that are hot topics, new, fresh, things that you need to know in your profession. We also have a huge digital library of the webinar Wednesdays, so you can go back and watch those on demand. So that's very beneficial. So you get a lot of free education. You get digital access to our NENA publications. We have the Call magazine that is produced on a quarterly basis. So it comes out 4 times a year. That also has a treasure trove of information so you can stay up to date on things that are happening in your industry. There's also a TC only resource page and other types of special trainings and scholarship opportunities for telecommunicator members.
Awesome.
Now, and not to mention, again, volunteering. You can volunteer even if you're not a member. You can volunteer to be a part of our standards development process. And if anybody is interested in learning more, you can go to our website, which is nena.org, NENA.org. And along the top, there's a tab for membership. There's a tab for standards and best practices. There's a tab for committees. And under the committees tab, the third tab down is get involved. And that if you go there, you can find all of the different working groups that we have available right now to get involved, whether you're really interested in technical information. And you can just get involved in the working groups just to listen. You don't have to initially participate. If you just want to be an observer, you can observe the working groups before you actually join them to see if it's really something you want to do. That's super simple. And it's usually about an hour a week that we have a call. It's through Zoom. We have calls that we can work on these various different documents that we're working on.
That's awesome. And I believe if you are a member, you get discounts on some of these certifications and test process as well, right?
Yes. So if you're a member, there are certain discounts for various different things, conference attendance, different educational, if you wanted to join one of the classes that we're offering, you do get a member discount for that. But if you're an EMP, you get an even bigger discount. Ooh. So that's also another advantage to becoming an EMP.
Very cool. And in regards to membership, do you guys offer like comm center discounts if a center wanted to get everybody a membership? Is that
Yeah,
something that you guys offer as well?
we sure do. So we do have group memberships, and in those, and the packages actually include full memberships all the way down, including that also include telecommunicator memberships, as well as a lot of the bigger the group you have, the more you get educational courses. So
Mm,
typically they get a few different educational courses per year just for doing the group membership.
that's so awesome. Very cool.
And group
Um,
memberships also give its discounted prices.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm about to spit it to my agency. Like, look, we should get a group membership going here. I'm at a smaller agency now, so I think they might swing it. We'll see.
Well, the nice thing also about memberships, remember, is, I'm talking about our conferences getting discounts, but even your local state conferences will
Mhm.
give you a discount typically for members as well as EMPs. So if whether you're going to a state conference or a national conference, it does give you discounts that way.
Awesome. So NENA, has the main organization, and then each state has the opportunity to have their own NENA branch off. Is that kind of how it's set up?
Yep. So we have chapters at each state level. And the chapters oftentimes have their own state meetings. It depends on the chapter. Most of them are probably quarterly,
Mhm.
where the various different members will come together. They'll hear what's going on at the national level, but then they can also discuss and work on things at the state level. Chapters oftentimes, like I said, have their own conferences,
Mhm.
but they a lot of times have their own working groups or committees
Mhm.
within their chapter that work on maybe state legislation
Mhm.
or the conference. Sometimes it's other things like EMP certification at the state level, where they have different study groups and things like that to entice new ENPs.
That's awesome. Um, so one question that I ask everybody who comes on the show with me is, what advice would you give someone who is interested in becoming a dispatcher or getting into this career? What is one nugget that you would provide them with all your experience in this line of work?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't hesitate to do it,
Mm,
because it is a very enriching career path. And I really want to, I'd really say it's truly a career path. It's a calling. I don't really know very many folks who get into the 911 field and don't get bit by the bug. And what I mean by that is, even if you decide, oh, you know what, this career path really isn't for me, and you decide to leave it, you would be surprised how many of us come back to it,
mm,
because they leave and they go, wait a minute, I really miss it. I
mm,
really loved helping people. And it is definitely something that you get to help people every single day, and you make a difference. And I don't think that there's a lot of careers that can say, I make a difference.
mm.
I help people every day. I am, what I do is important. And this one is.
That's amazing. April, thank you so much for coming on here talking about NENA. Genuinely, I tell people all the time, one thing about hosting this show is I get more knowledge. So we're giving it out to the people, but then I get to hear it first. So I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming on here to share the benefits of NENA with the folks who listen to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I'm also going to just throw one more little thing out there. It is my job and NENA to help you and to help the industry. So if anybody needs assistance for whatever reason, whether you're looking for policy options, you need to understand how to fix something, or whatever it is, don't hesitate to reach out to us at NENA. We are here to help you. That's why we do what we do.
Amazing. And I'll include all that contact information in the information section of this episode as well, so folks can find NENA.org easily and check out all the chapters, certification, trainings, all the great things you guys got going over there at NENA.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashley. You are wonderful. Keep doing you.
Well, thank you. I'll be right back with you, April. All right, everybody, that was another great episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch. Make sure to check out NENA.org. Like April said, there's a lot of great information on there, whether you're running a PSAP as a supervisor or you're in a PSAP answering 911 and dispatching officers out. There's just a wealth of information on this site and opportunities, like April said, to get to volunteer, to connect with folks who get it and who are very interested in improving the services that 911 provides. Again, like, subscribe, tell a friend, and until next time, stay raspy, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Let's Talk Dispatch. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Consider joining our Patreon for exclusive content, early access to episodes, and discounts on merch at theraspydispatcher.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of these things help support the creation of more content, because the world needs more dispatchers. Thank you all again for the love and continued support, and until next time, stay raspy.